The Justice Department and Google make their final arguments in a historic antitrust case in court today. Last year, a federal judge declared Google's dominant speech engine an illegal monopoly. Now, that judge could order radical changes to allow more competition, including a possible sell-off of its Chrome browser. Let's bring in CBS News reporter Jake Rosen, who's following all of this for us and other justice headlines as well. Jake, good to see you today. What can you tell us about this case today?
Well, that's right. This case was brought last year, obviously under the Biden administration, as the Trump administration has really continued a lot of these big antitrust efforts. There's obviously the ongoing case down here as well about Meta. What this case specifically refers to is the way that Google collects data, which at least this judge found they collect 9 times as much data as all of the competitors and search engines that are not Google Chrome combined. And he said that the way that they do that allows them to have the most accurate ways of providing people search results, which gives them a monopoly on the market. The potential solutions here, Mugo, are complicated. If they go all the way to where the Department of Justice wants them to go, this judge could potentially shake the entire market up by forcing them to sell off Google Chrome, which obviously would massively damage Alphabet, Google's parent company. At the same time, Google is asking for more of a forward-looking remedy, maybe a deal to potentially block them from moving into anti-competitive measures going forward. But at the heart of this is the AI that is at the center of this, and in addition to that, all the data that they've already collected, and are they going to be forced in some way to kind of share that with other competitors? Yet to be determined, but closing arguments are today. And again, they've already been found guilty of this in antitrust suits. There's an additional trial afterwards to kind of figure out where the judge can go from here.
Wow, a big case there. Jake, I want to pivot to another headline. Sources tell us the FBI is now investigating an effort to impersonate a top Trump advisor using AI. So who is the target and what was the goal here? Do we know anything about that?
Well, we don't know who is responsible quite yet, and it could be multiple people or just one person. But we know that last year there were attempts by foreign governments, including potentially Iran, to hack into both the Biden, Harris, and Trump campaigns. Potentially, this is part of that. We do not know for sure, but we know that White House Chief of Staff Susie Wiles, you can see on your screen, she ran the Trump campaign in 2024. She's now the Chief of Staff at the White House, and people close to her started receiving calls on a separate number that's not Wiles, impersonating her and claiming to be her and wanting to move those conversations from just phone calls to potentially other programs and apps like Telegram, which are obviously used oftentimes by bad actors to gain access further to other people's data. The suspicious messages hit the inboxes over an unknown period of time. We know that yesterday, after the Wall Street Journal put out an expose kind of reporting this, our Jennifer Jacobs was able to confirm all of those details, and and that Susie Wiles had explained to people around her that her phone had been hacked. The FBI and Kash Patel, the FBI's director, said that they're investigating this, and a White House spokesperson said that they take all cybersecurity issues seriously and that they're trying to get to the bottom of this. Certainly, obviously, the implications of somebody as high in the government as Wiles having her contacts and potentially messages hacked is one big thing, Mugo, but it's how far they might have gone after that is really, in terms of getting other people's data in the top of business executives, politicians, and people in the Trump administration, the depth has yet to be determined yet.
Oh, yeah, that's definitely the big question there. We also have an update with the case of a Wisconsin judge. That's Hannah Dugan. What more can you tell us about that case?
Well, that's right. You'll remember last month she was arrested by the FBI for allegedly obstructing ICE officials from arresting an illegal immigrant who was in her courtroom. She has claimed all along that she is innocent because those acts were done in her official capacity, and she has the ability, under her, again, official capacity, which is at the center of this, to move people around her courtroom as she sees fit. The ICE agents were attempting to arrest this man directly outside of her courtroom. She took issue with that, tried to have them do it elsewhere. Eventually, she sent this man allegedly down a back stairway, an elevator, in which a foot chase happened, and they arrested the man outside of the courtroom. She's claiming, based on the Separation of Powers Act, and pointing to a Supreme Court decision last year that allowed Donald Trump to have immunity for his official acts, as reasons why she can't actually be charged like this. And her attorneys argued that the prosecution is barred by judicial immunity, long rooted in common law. They'll be hearing next month on that. We'll see what happens. A very high-profile arrest of a sitting local judge, as the FBI and the Trump administration have attempted to make examples of people who get in the way of their immigration efforts.
We'll see what happens in that case. And Jake, we also understand the Justice Department asked a judge to dismiss a criminal case over 2 Boeing airplane crashes. What can you tell us about the case and why the DOJ officials want to drop it?
Well, this all stems from two deadly 737 crashes in 2018, 2019. There were 346 people that were killed. The families of those people killed have long asked the Justice Department to hold Boeing and the Boeing company accountable. There were criminal charges filed against them for negligence in the way that they hadn't updated and fixed parts of those lethal jets at a certain point in time. The Trump administration has revoked and kind of taken the opposite position of the Biden administration, as we've seen so often, Mugo. They've been willing to go into a non-prosecution agreement, basically asking a judge this week to end those charges because they say that they've agreed to some kind of official oversight efforts, including some oversight by the Department of Justice and other parts of the government, in addition to Boeing paying out to a victims fund additional money to those families. The families say they want an opportunity to go in front and kind of intervene in this case and make their argument as to why the Department of Justice is wrong and that they see this settlement as, in one way, a miscarriage of justice. Certainly, again, more to come on this, but it would be a very high-profile incident of the Department of Justice really siding with the big company when people's lives were lost in recent years because of alleged negligence.
Very important to note that, Jake Rosen. Thank you so much for joining us today. So many topics covered. We appreciate your time. Happy Friday to you.
Always.